You shall tear down their altars and dash in pieces their pillars and burn their asherim with fire. You shall chop down the carved images of their gods and destroy their name out of that place. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way. Now, just stop right here and just understand something. God will never tolerate false religions among the people of God. There should not be in our home any symbols of demonic religions. Now, please, people get mad at me when I say things like this, but there should never be any Buddhist statues in my home or Hindu statues in my home or any kind of a thing that's a false religion, a symbol of a false religion. None of that should be in my home. These things should be away from us. See, God is not jealous of stuff. God will prosper you. God will bless you. But when God talks about jealousy, he says, I don't want your heart going to those demons. Now, again, his jealousy is not because he's bad. His jealousy is because he loves us. Now, you just need to stop and be logical with me for a minute. Satan only comes to steal, kill, and destroy. There is nothing good a demon god is going to do in anybody's life. I'm sorry, they can package this demonic religion as beautiful and they can market it as beautifully as they want. But bottom line, at its core, every demon is like the devil. They only come to steal, kill, and destroy. Now, the symbols of demonic religion should not be in our homes. He said, you shall not worship the Lord your God in that way. Now, you're going to begin to see a principle coming out through these chapters and some others, where we are never to imitate a false religion. I see many churches today. Oh, well, this is how it's done. And it worked like that in Buddhism. It worked like that in Shintoism. It works like this in Hinduism. So we're gonna copy this so that people will feel comfortable. You know, if we're going to go in and evangelize Hindus, we're going to copy some things of the Hindu religion so that people will feel comfortable. No. Never copy false religion. He said, you shall not worship the Lord your God in that way. But he said, you shall seek the place that the Lord your God will choose out of all the tribes to put his name and to make his habitation there. There you shall go, and there you shall bring your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes and contributions that you present, your vow offerings, your freewill offerings, and the firstborn of your herd and flock. Now, I continue. Verse 7, and there you shall eat before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice, you and your household, in which all you undertake, in which the Lord your God has blessed you. Now, I want you just to back up the bus here and realize something. You shall seek the place the Lord your God will choose. Did you notice they never did that? I mean, I just sat there reading this the other day and thought, they never did that. Not until David. The Jebusites still lived in Jerusalem until the time of David. The Jebusites were never driven from the land. The Jebusites were the people who occupied Jerusalem. The Jebusites were never driven from Jerusalem until the time of David. So for how many hundreds of years did they never do what God asked them to do? They never sought the place the Lord your God would choose out. They never sought God, say, Lord, where shall we put your temple? Where shall be the permanent resting place? They didn't care. They had something temporary to get by with. They had the tabernacle in the wilderness, which was later built there. Eli took it and established it in one place, and it stayed there for 350 years until David came along, and then the ark was moved up to Jerusalem. But it's just shocking to me that they never sought this place. They were satisfied to let God live with the temporary while they had a permanent home. Now, I look at that and I go, how many churches today are satisfied to let God live with the temporary while they build beautiful homes for themselves? I sat down with a pastor many years ago, and I just preached that Sunday in his church, and it was an ugly warehouse. I mean, not even clean. It was just an ugly warehouse. You know, but that's all right. If that's the best you have, then fine. I have no problem with that. But then he took me to his home for lunch, and it was built by this famous architect. And it was like one of the most expensive houses in this whole city. And when he drove me to his house, he and his wife were both in beautiful Jaguars. And I looked at him at lunch and I said, can I ask a question that will probably break our relationship? He said, what's your question? He said, we're always friends. I said, why do you drive Jaguars and live in this beautiful home? And God's house is a mess. It's rented, you don't even own it, and it's a mess. My friends, you have to understand. I don't believe in architectural evangelism, no, but that's a whole nother sermon. But you have to understand, these people were satisfied to let God live in the temporary, even though God told them, seek out the place that I'm going to choose. They never sought out the place. They never went and sought and said, God, in what place do you want your temple to be? In what place, what is the place that you want? For hundreds of years, they just let it go by while they built all of their beautiful homes. My friends, I don't ever want to be like that. I want to be like a Nehemiah, where Nehemiah prayed, Lord, remember all that I have done for the house of God. Ah, what kind of a spirit do you have? Verse 8, you shall not do according to all that we are doing here today, everyone doing what is right in his own eyes. Oh, he said, now when it comes to your tithe and offerings and everything, every one of you is doing what's right in your own eyes. He said, no, this has got to change. See, this is when tithe and offerings changed for Israel. There was no tithe in the wilderness because there was no income. They were dependency living for 40 years in the wilderness. They were dependency living. There was no tithe. He said, now, you can't keep doing what you're doing right now where everybody does what's right in his own eyes. For you have not yet come to the rest and to the inheritance that the Lord your God has given you. But when you go over the Jordan and live in the land that the Lord your God has given you to inherit, and when he gives you rest from all your enemies around so that you live in safety, then to the place that the Lord your God will choose to make his name dwell there, there you shall bring all that I command you. He said, now listen, things are going to change. Now, maybe now we begin to see why people did not want to build the house of God. They did not want to discover Jerusalem as a place for God's house, because God says, now you're going to have to do this. There you shall bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithe, and the contribution that you present, and of all your finest vow offerings that you vow to the Lord. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God, you and your sons and your daughters and your male servants and your female servants, and the Levite that is within your towns, since he has no portion or inheritance with you. Take care that you do not offer your burnt offerings at any place that you see. He said, now listen, I don't want you giving this money every place around. He said, I don't want you spreading it around like you're in control. He said, no more doing whatever's right in your own eyes. He said, but at the place the Lord will choose in one of your tribes, there you shall offer your burnt offerings, and there you shall do all that I am commanding you. Now, in the new covenant, the house of God is the local church. It's where you receive your spiritual food. It's where you are blessed. So he said, I don't want you just passing this around and doing whatever you want with it. He said, you bring it to the house of God. However, you may slaughter and eat meat within any of your towns as much as you desire, according to the blessings that the Lord your God has given you. He said, now listen, you want to eat, you want to have a great meal, great. You go have a great meal, according to the blessings of the Lord your God that he has given you. Never live your life by debt. Live your life by the blessings the Lord your God has given you. Now, people look at me and they say, Pastor Sumrall, why are you and Sister Bev so blessed? Well, for one thing, we've never lived beyond our means. We don't spend what we don't have. Now, that's what God is saying there. You can eat anything you want to eat according to the blessing the Lord your God has given you. Now, when God has blessed you and you can eat this fancy food, fine, go ahead and eat it. But if God has blessed you to the point that right now you can eat rice and fish, then fine, go and do it and be happy and be content. Never go out and celebrate on debt. The unclean and the clean may eat of it, as of the gazelle and as of the deer. Only you shall not eat the blood. You shall pour it out on the earth like water. You may not eat within your towns the tithe of your grain or your wine, of your oil, or the firstborn of your herd or of your flock. Now, one of the things you're going to see, so that you don't get confused, and I don't have time to teach it in devotions, is that there are actually three types of tithes. He said, now there's this one tithe that you eat and you share with people, you share with the poor. Verse 18. But you shall eat them before the Lord your God in the place that the Lord your God will choose, and you your son, your daughter, your male servant, and your female servant, and the Levite is within your towns. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God in all that you undertake. Take care that you do not neglect the Levite as long as you live in the land. Now, the Levites, Numbers 18, are completely supported by the tithe. You bring the whole tithe to where God says it to be brought, because that's how you take care of the people who provide for you spiritually. He said, now don't neglect the Levite. At COP, our pastors are very blessed. Why are our pastors blessed? Because our people do not neglect them. Verse 20, and by that I don't mean they give them money. I mean they bring their tithe to the Lord and the Lord supports them. Numbers 18. When the Lord your God enlarges your territory, as he promised you, and you say, I will eat meat because you crave meat, you may eat meat whenever you desire. I said, I don't mind, eat meat. If the place that the Lord your God will choose to put his name there is too far from you, then you may kill any herd of your flock which the Lord has given you, and I command you. And you may eat within your towns whenever you desire, just as the gazelle or the deer is eaten. So you may eat of it. The unclean and the clean alike may eat of it. Only be sure that you do not eat the blood, for the blood is the life, and you shall not eat the life within the flesh. Now again, that's a whole sermon that I don't want to get into right now. You shall not eat it. You shall pour it out on the earth like water. You shall not eat it, that all may go well with you and with your children after you, when you do what is right in the sight of the Lord. But the holy things that are due from you, your vow offerings, you shall take, and you shall go to the place that the Lord shall choose. Now notice, they didn't go discover this place until King David, hundreds of years later. And offer your burnt offerings, the flesh of the blood, and on the altar of the burnt of the Lord your God. The blood of your sacrifices shall be poured out on the altar of the Lord your God, but the flesh you may eat. Be careful to obey all these words that I command you, that it may go well with you and your children after you forever, when you do what is right, good and right in the sight of the Lord your God. Verse 29. When the Lord your God cuts off before you the nations whom you go in to dispossess, and you dispossess them and dwell in their land, take care that you are not ensnared to follow them. Don't engage the culture. Change the culture. After they have been destroyed before you, and that you do not inquire about their gods. Have you ever noticed I've never taught about the cults in COP? Have you ever noticed I don't sit down and dissect what's wrong with this person and that? I don't want to inquire about demon gods. Have you ever noticed I just don't do that? All of my life, I remember when I had to study the cults in Bible college. I hated it. I said, I don't want to study this. I don't want to read the Quran. Forgive me. I don't want to read the Quran. I don't want to read the Buddhist holy book or Confucius holy book. I don't want to read the Hindu sacred scripts. I don't want to inquire after them. Take care that you will not be ensnared to follow them after you have been destroyed before you, and that you do not inquire about their gods. Now, you don't go question. You don't go, I want to learn about these other religions. No, you focus your life on God. How did these nations serve their gods? That I may also do the same. He said, don't you do that. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way. Don't copy false worship. We've already talked about that. For every abominable thing that the Lord hates, they have done for their gods. For they even burn their sons and their daughters in the fire to their gods. Everything that I command you, you shall be careful to do. You shall not add to it, nor take from it. That's amazing. Through the years, the Jews have taken the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, and they have added to it, and they have taken from it. But he says, don't do that. Chapter 13, verse 1. If a prophet or a dreamer of dreams arises among you and gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or wonder that he tells you comes to pass, and if he says, let's just go after other gods which you have not known, and let us serve them, you shall not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer of dreams. For the Lord your God is testing you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. Now, notice, miracles deceive. Not every miracle is from God. Miracles deceive. And then you go, well, it must be good. It must be real because a miracle happened, so I should listen to them. He said, listen, if they teach you something different, if they teach you to follow other gods, he said, this is a test of God. And the test is not a test of obedience. Notice it's a test of love. It's a test of the greatest commandment that we talked about in chapter 6, verse 4. It's a test of the greatest commandment that Jesus talks about, to love the Lord your God. So when people come and offer you these other religions, God is testing you. It's not a test of obedience. It's not a test of duty and discipline. It's a test of love. To know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. Now, we need to stop there today, but keep reading all the way down through the end of chapter 13. There's some beautiful truths there about worthless fellows that pull people in wrong directions. You know, in every society, there are some worthless fellows. That's a sermon I'll preach one day. Worthless fellows. There are worthless fellows that will pull your heart away from God. My friends, the Bible is a wonderful book. If you will just read it and live it, it will be well with you. God bless you. We'll see you tonight, 7 o'clock.